I'm Thomas.
I'm Adam.
This is Adam.
That's Thomas.
Welcome to episode 4 of the PODcastaways. Cheers.
Crouch. Bind. Set.
This is Thomas.
I'm Adam.
Welcome to the 4th episode of the PODcastaways. Today,
Four.
Today is the day we're going to... today is a day. I'm choking my words, but planning to talk a little bit about the D4 game that happened this past Saturday, as well as throwing back to the Toledo game as we recovered some lost footage we found of the man of the match from that game, talking about the World Cup. I have a game for Adam, and then we are also going to discuss yellows and red cards and timeliness with those. So Go ahead and get started.
Cool. Well, we'll touch on it first, but we'll backtrack to Brendan, man of the match against Toledo. Obviously, we didn't win that game. We talked about it a little bit last week. It was a bit of we came away not feeling great about that whole thing, but there are positives.
Absolutely.
Some players had great games. Obviously, you had to try. Blaze had an amazing game.
The Blaze Fan Club.
Just out and out back row. Great player.
I think Brendan led the team through the set piece a lot. He really dominated the scrums that he was part of. The lineouts were always solid when he was in there lifting, and always a monster on defense. Had a lot of really great tackles. There's one that I specifically remember that I was standing off. I think maybe I had just been on a ruck trying to counter ruck it, and I stood up and I heard like a pop, and it was just him going through and clearing out, or maybe just tackling one of their locks, and it was just like rib breaking. Like it was just thunderous. It was a pretty good tackle here.
Forwards were tough that game. I think we talked about it last week a little bit, but I think the one area we were weakest in was just fitness.
Yeah.
Because our forwards are great. I don't think we lost. We didn't get rucked off anything. We went for some jackals that were maybe not allowed.
Yeah.
They were borderline.
Questionable.
But then fitness, just getting back on, joining the line. I think there's something I always remember is Brian O'Driscoll used to say, if you're involved in a ruck or a maul, you have 3 phases of play to get back in your position. And if you're not there, that's where the game gets lost. So that'd be a good thing to work on, training, fitness-wise, as we get towards the end of the season and then when we're off. But anyway, I did catch up with Brendan this weekend. We'd had a beer before this.
Naturally.
So
I was grilling out all the time.
He was grilling. Oh, we can show that as well. But yeah, so here's Brendan and talking through his man of the match performance. Here's Brendan talking about his man of the match performance at Toledo.
Adam Moore, correspondent, here with Brendan Malloy. Man of the match against Toledo last week. Just going to give you a little player lowdown. Brendan, you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself as a rugby player?
Yeah, started playing when I was in high school in 2009. Took a couple years after that where I just did pickup games with Valley where they were short guys. I would go out and Rory was pretty much calling me up and saying, we need players for whatever, so I would go. And then I met Steve Landis through that, and then just coincidentally I ran into him in the gym one day and mentioned that he was starting up a new rugby club, and from there I went to the very first Castaway practice. I think there were half a dozen of us, and then I've just been part of the club ever since.
Cool.
Yeah.
You did that one. Favorite moment of the game? Of any game?
Of any game.
Yes.
Sorry, cameraman.
No, favorite moment of the Toledo game. Literally, one of their locks came across and I had a perfect hit on him. Literally to a point where I just felt my shoulder go into his diaphragm and drove him right into the dirt. And just one of those moments where,
It was loud.
Yeah, it was. But honestly, that or just, me and Blaze.
The Blaze Fan Club.
Getting up there in those lineouts and stealing lineouts, and our scrums were great. It was, our set pieces were fantastic on Saturday.
Yeah, you're welcome. Being finishing at 6. General thoughts looking ahead to the Tradesman game. I know it's going to be a tough one. They're a tough team.
I'm just hoping that we get. We did a lot of hitting practice on Thursday, and hopefully follow it up with Tuesday, and just a little more disciplined in our hitting, and then just carry that over to the game, and hopefully our scrums and our lineouts still look just as good, and then we kind of fill the gaps where we had problems.
Yeah. Cool. Well, one thing left to do is man of the match.
Yeah. Cheers.
Oh, loser. Bring more. Yeah, you beat my guy.
I'm not even halfway through.
Not even that. That recording was done actually this past Saturday, so about a week late, and we did it at the D4 game, which was held here at our home field at Rhodes Park against the Coyotes. which are another team that are based out of the Columbus area. Our D4 side ended up beating them. It was 48-7, I believe,
Fest.
like that. And there was a lot of tries. Charlie had a hat trick. And we had a few players score their first tries as castaways, like Dr. Tom and a few others that had their first tries. So it was a really fun game to watch. And one of the things that I love about the D4 team is the mix of older and younger guys. And you have the older guys that are trying to, they're leaders on the field, but also you can see just what they bring to it. Like Josh, for example, just the glue that holds the team together. You see Ugly out there throwing the most wild offloads you've ever seen and some of the hardest carries you've ever seen. So there's just that's a type of experience that just takes time to get to that. And a lot of these younger guys, they want to get there, but this is the opportunity for them to learn from those guys and skills to get passed down. So it was really sweet to watch.
It was great. I mean, I think, and then Josh said this after the game, put it on Facebook, that one of the highlights for me, yes, the win, incredible. Everyone scored a load of tries, great game. But just the fact that we were all there as a team. Mm-hmm. You brought Master Blaster, Paul, you brought the grill. Thanks, bud. Thank you. You cooked everything, didn't get to eat anything. No. But like the squirrels came over, they had a few burgers and stuff. We had cookies made and stuff like that, and it was a real just a team day, and it was great, and it's good, especially coming off a couple of losses the week before. It's nice to just be friends again.
Yeah.
And I think everyone just had a really great day, and then people got together in the evening to watch the OSU game. Mm-hmm. We obviously went to Woodland's backyard. I don't know if we got footage of the boat race, but we did the proper boat race, which we were losing by a mile, and then Joel got it back at the end.
Nice.
Row. I'm going to need some more hits. Go. Let's go. Go, Tom. Come on, Ray. Come on, Adam, open the floor. Down the half, Adam, he's catching up. Open the floor. Come on, Cam. Drop your jaw. Come on. Pour it on your head. On your head. It's all on you, Rogan. Down the half, come on,
I think we tied.
Okay.
Man of the match for D4. Mm-hmm. It was Dougie.
Dougie, interesting.
Lost his boat race twice. Can't drink, so complains that it was completely about just because it was IPA.
Come on! I would have given it to Charlie. Nothing against Doug.
No, I agree.
Hard evidence to fight against. But...
how often do you see someone score 3 tries and not get man of the match? I think Charlie had a great game. Speaking of people scoring tons of tries, did you see England?
I did. Henry Arnold scored 5 tries in that game. There was just a lot of wild tries in general. I know, obviously, Marcus Smith had a chip and chase. That was really good to see. But I think, as anyone kind of suspected, the highlight game of the weekend for me was the Ireland versus South Africa game. And we were kind of talking about this before we started recording, but that there was no yellow cards or red cards during that game. There were some penalties and some after shenanigans between some of the players after rucks and tackles and kicks and things like that. But it was a very clean game and a good one to watch. Both teams really flexed their muscles, I thought. So
I think as an impartial, it would have been great to watch. I sat on the sofa, stressed out of my mind.
That's fair.
And I'm assuming anyone who supports South Africa had exactly the same. It was 80 minutes of just panic.
I loved the game, but the ambience of the game too. I was watching it on my TV, and you could hear the Irish fans singing "Zombie" by I think it's the Cranberries or something.
Oh yeah,
singing it, and it was like echoing from my TV through my whole.
It is across the board tonight. They've entertained this group of players.
The Cranberries play at the stadium for the Irish side. Here's a look at the full-time stats.
My whole home, so it was kind of cool to hear that too. obviously you can't suspend the disbelief that you're not actually at the game, but it felt almost like I was there. Like I could hear people saying next to me almost. It was really cool.
Yeah, and I think that's something that happens in World Cups is that because there'll obviously be a lot of Team 1 and Team 2 fans there, but there's also a lot of people who just go for the love of the sport and just get tickets, and obviously a lot of locals will be there, which was a little bit lacking in the last World Cup in Japan.
Yeah.
Just there was smaller crowds.
There's also the really bad storms and stuff like that too. People had to fly back home that they didn't have the days off anymore.
Okay, yeah. So, but yeah, it's been so far a great World Cup. I think. I think we do talk a lot about the World Cup, which is just something because obviously it's rugby. So maybe we'll just go around it this week and not talk about as much. But yeah,
Dupont's going to make it back in time with his bionic face mask, and he's going to win the World Cup. Anyways,
so much.
So I know we said we don't want to talk too much about the World Cup, but to meet you on your game that you made last week, I wanted to not be as creative as you because I can't do all the fancy stuff with Photoshop. But what I can do is ask you good trivia questions.
Okay.
So I had a couple for you. I'm just going to do, there's a list of 30 here that I have, but I'm going to only do like 4 or 5 of them. So
does this make Adam look stupid?
No. Okay, and the first 8, I'll give you kind of a gimme one. The first 8 World Cups were won by only 4 different nations. Which of the champions have only won it once?
England.
That's your gimme one.
2003.
2003, yep.
Johnny Wilkinson drop goal.
Do you know which team holds the record for the most points scored in a single match?
Total points scored or point difference?
Total points scored in a single match.
In that World Cup, England beat Uruguay or someone by like 113 to 15 or something. So 113 points. So I think England also scored 120 points in one game. I don't know. I don't know. What World Cup is it?
This one doesn't specify the World Cup or what the scoreline was, but it specifically says New Zealand scored the most points. One of the other questions that was in here that I thought would be a hard one, but it's just interesting because I was interested to read it out. But Australia in the 2003 World Cup broke the record for the largest win margin of any game ever. It was against Namibia, and they won 142-0. And that's the largest margin of, but that's not the highest points scored in a game.
So there's been more than 142 points. Okay.
Which means the All Blacks must have scored at some point more than 142
Well, that must have been in 87 or 91 because that's before me knowing what was going on. Okay. I mean, there's been some big scores this World Cup, but okay, 100 and...
I'm going to pick out 2 more for you.
If he finds out the information, I'll put it here as well to show you which thing. And then Ollie, well done for being from New Zealand.
Do you know which player holds the record for the most conversions in the final stages of Rugby World Cups? I don't know the final stages, but call it quarterfinals and on. Which player scored the most points? Or specifically conversions?
I mean, Johnny Wilkinson scored a lot of kicks in that World Cup, but he scored a ton of drop goals and a lot of penalties. So I mean, they did score a lot of tries in 2003. Do you know which World Cup it was?
This player played in multiple World Cups, so it's multiple World Cups.
Well, so it's quarterfinals and onwards.
Yes, that's what.
Okay, so it can't be Ireland because so it's going to be one of the big 4. It could be Dan Carter because New Zealand scored a huge amount of tries. So I would probably say it's Dan Carter.
That's the correct answer. Okay, and we'll do one last question. Brian Habana and John Alomu share the record for the most tries in the final stages of, again, quarterfinals on Rugby World Cup tournaments. How many tries did they each score?
Okay, Lomu in 91 scored 91 or 95. He scored 2 hat-tricks, and he scored 3. I think he got 11 or 12 in the total, but not quarterfinals onwards. Brian Habana scored... How many did they score? Quarterfinals and on?
I believe so, yes. It just says final stages on this one, so I don't know what that actually means.
Well, you only got quarters, semis, and final. I don't think anyone scored a hat-trick in a World Cup final. 7?
15 apiece.
What?
That's what it says on
Well, that's going to
man.
be in the full tournament then.
That was my guess. It specifically
Yeah.
says, if you read the question, though, it says the final stages of the Rugby World Cup. So to me, that read is
that might be the world.
quarterfinals
That
and
might
on,
be
but
group stage plus everything.
that
But
could
I
be
know
that.
that because Lomu in 94 I think it was 1901. I was 3. You were -7. He scored. He got 2 hat tricks. He got a game with 2. He didn't play 1 game, and then I think he scored 2 in the final against South Africa, and they lost. But it must have been that one, because Lomu in 1995 didn't score as many as he did when New Zealand did win the World Cup.
And then actually, I'll do one more.
Okay.
This one should be a gimme. I think it's a gimme anyways. The South African team are called the Springboks. The Australians are called the Wallabies. Do you know the name of the Japanese team? Just because we talked about them as my favorite jerseys last week.
Well, I know them as the Shoguns, but they're the Cherry Blossoms.
The Brave Blossoms.
Yeah, Brave Blossoms. That's
Another one that was on there too that I was too nervous to even try to pronounce because I'm afraid of pronouncing my British town names was why is the rugby school in Warwickshire so important?
Warwickshire.
Warwickshire.
Warwick.
Warwick. It says Warwick.
Yeah, but you don't pronounce the middle double. It's Warwick.
But do you know why that school's important?
Yeah, because that's where William Webb Ellis picked up the ball in 1823.
Do you know which country he's buried in? This is one that's not on
Where
the
he's
list.
buried in?
Mm-hmm.
Is he not buried in England? South Africa? Australia? France?
I don't know why that is, but I saw that on a documentary.
Probably a war of some description, maybe.
I hope not.
1823. No, he'd have been too young. Do you know why the All Blacks are called the All Blacks?
I do not.
Do you have a guess?
Well, they wear all black, but I don't know what they called that now.
Shout out to Moff for telling me this at the weekend because I didn't.
It's probably
know
not true
this.
if it's from an Australian.
Probably not. It's the first time England went and played in New Zealand and played against them. A journalist wrote and made a spelling mistake and wrote that because they were all fast and big guys, they are all backs
Okay.
with an extra L, so all blacks. And obviously they wear all black, and the name stuck.
Just stuck.
And that's where they went. Yeah, so it was a mistake. There you go. That was it.
I'll say a lot of the other trivia questions all had to do with Owen Farrell, so I didn't want to ask you about him because it was all
God.
a lot of them focused on the 2019 World Cup. So a lot of them were asking about who captained the English side and what team does he play for in the Premiership and that kind of stuff. And I was like, there was 4 of them, and I was going to just do every single answer was Owen Farrell to make you question yourself, but I decided not to. I decided not to do
You
that.
should have done that. That'd have been great. I'd have been like, seriously, Owen Farrell?
Again.
Okay, cool. The other thing that, speaking of World Cups, obviously it's happened a lot, and there's been a lot of yellow and red cards in this World Cup, obviously because the game is hugely focusing on head injuries and head contact and trying to keep the game safe. But then with that becomes games where you have, like the Italy-Uruguay game last week, where you have teams down by 3 guys at certain points, or you have 14 versus 13 and stuff, and it does that ruin the game is the question. Because if I'd been playing club rugby and got into a team and then you're out of the game from a head injury from one moment, does that ruin it? Also, if you've paid a ton of money to go and watch your team, you've flown to France, and then something like that happens, does it ruin the game? So something that Neat Street Sports, I'll put the link in description. But it's a podcast. They're talking about, and I think I sent this to you. There's a guy, and he's basically saying, should we look at, if we're making the law be super critical of high tackles and head contact, do we also need to look at what that penalty triggers?
The fucking robbery, what happened yesterday. One of their players, their captain, got sent off for making contact with an Italian player's head. How am I going to fix the game of rugby for the fans and for the people? First off, we make headgear compulsory. It's a 2-minute penalty, it's a 5-minute penalty, it's a 10-minute penalty, or it's a red card. We have to make it more nuanced and more tiered so the punishment fits the crime, right? There was no intent. There was a shitload of mitigating factors. If we're going to update the penalties, like what is a yellow card and what's not, we're changing the rules on that. We need to grade the penalty as well. On top of that, if the other team scores a try or gets a penalty while the other guy's off, the penalty's over. The guy comes back on. He's done the crime. He's done the time. Get him back on.
So if it is a big hit, that's completely the guy didn't make any attempt to wrap his arms, and it's a shoulder charge in the head, it's an Owen Farrell to someone's face. Should that be, if that's a red card, then what's the next? Because then other than red, you've got yellow, and it's 10 minutes, and for every infraction, it's 10 minutes off the field.
Mm-hmm.
So should there be a little bit like hockey and stuff, where you've got your 10-minute yellow card, but you've also got a 5-minute yellow card for something that's less, or if it's you're offside every time, and it's not a head injury, it's just someone being offside to try and make a tackle, which happens. Should that just be a 2-minute yellow card? And then the other side of that is if your team does get someone yellow carded and they're off for 10 minutes, should my team score, we've benefited from that infraction. We've benefited from you being off the field. Well, then the penalty's over.
Yeah.
Because we have now the penalty there was you're removed from the game, I've scored a try. Done. I think that becomes difficult then when there's a penalty try involved, because you're like, well, you're getting a yellow card and there's 7 points. So then does the guy just come straight back on? Like, what happens there? So I think there's a good conversation about it. But we've been talking a lot about high tackles and head injuries, and you and I and Ollie and some others have been texting during the games and being like, that was ridiculous, that was crazy, and it's good talking points about stuff. But I mean, I'd just be interested to understand like what you think about that, because I think as the game develops and more people are watching rugby, the game needs to develop.
I agree.
In terms of, if you're going to stop people getting head contact, you need to work out a system that represents that in terms of the penalties.
I think if we're talking specifically on head injuries and like shoulder charges, that kind of thing, to me, the game has been moving in a more positive direction as far as that goes. I think there's still, which sounds stupid to say, but there's still this like learning curve where players are I think, because I brought it up before, these like upright standing tackles where you're trying to like hit, catch the person. There's sometimes head injuries with those, you see those, but like the one that was on Dupont, like the dude just straight up, his head and shoulder hit Dupont in the head. Like didn't even try to make an attempt to wrap, in my opinion, anyways. But like seeing some of those things, I think that the penalty for head contact, which is maybe is a totally out of far left field opinion, is not harsh enough.
No, I would agree.
To me, the ban for however many weeks needs to be extended. I would love to see World Rugby actually show a video of what tackle school is, because clearly we have our 2-time graduate Owen Farrell, but like there's other players that have gone before and never infract again, things like that. But it's like, what is that actually? And to fix the head injury issue, I think it's stronger bans for that. I think there's got to be a look at the grassroots level of teaching those upright tackles, because I've made upright tackles before where I think my shoulder or head is hitting the head, but it was because I was running, like I was trying to stand up and catch them like this rather than trying to clip them to the side and shoulder charge them. I just put my body in front to catch them. We went down together, and so that was at that time was probably the safest tackle I could have done with the reaction that I had. Now, granted, I didn't put any force into the hit, like it was them just running into me and like we kind of felt, fall backwards, but things like that, or especially you see a lot of the head contact coming out of the air. Mm-hmm. So I think the air is always going to be an issue. I don't think there's ever going to be a way to fix the aerial battle.
I do think that when they review things with TMO and stuff, and they look at it and they go, okay, here's where we start at red card. Mm-hmm. And then you go mitigating circumstances. They're both in the air, they're both off their feet, so you've got less control, then to yellow. And then it drops down. And I think some of the way that most of the referees and TMOs are working is great. And I think the World Cup, and especially, the reviewing it while the play is happening is great, because I really dislike the fact that they blow their whistle, they're going to go, we're going to watch this on the big screen for 5 minutes. Yeah. And ruin, take 5 minutes out of the game because their momentum shifts and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, but I agree that there needs to be a sliding scale of if you can, but
where I disagree
if you've
from
got
that
someone
video,
5'5" trying to tackle Estebeth from South Africa, how can he make a high tackle?
I guess in theory, if he's just shoulder charging in, is the closest you can take.
And then flip them. How can he not make a high tackle? How low does Estebeth have to get to tackle someone chest height on? Some of the scrum halves for like Portugal and stuff are like 5'6".
I think the Japanese scrum half is 5'4", 5'5". Craig Casey's 5'5" from Ireland.
So I think there has to be. Did the player make a legitimate attempt to make a lower tackle? Fine. But then I agree with the things. The other thing they go on to say in that video is he thinks headgear should be mandatory. I'm like, well, then you're going to get people leading with the head, and it's going to turn into NFL.
So I guess the other two things I was going to say is, I'll just want to immediately to the headgear, is that to me, and I've worn a scrum cap a couple of different games, I've not noticed it as being protection from head hits. It's more so from scrapes and cuts to me, and like that kind of stuff, rather than it is head protection. I guess your ears get protected too, but like to me, that's not going to be a resolution in solving concussions at all. But then one of the things he was talking about and that we had talked about was like this, 2-minute bans versus a 5-minute ban versus 10-minute ban. I just think it's a blanket 10 minutes to me. I do think I'm more harsh than that than these other guys are, but like the yellow cards usually happen for a pretty legitimate reason. The only way that I could see maybe a difference in that would be, what player was that? I have to think back to the game. It was early this World Cup, but like it was not like the maybe it was Portugal or Chile or something like that. Offsides, like 10 penalties in a row, committed infractions, all in the red zone in the 22, and then one of their guys just happened to be the last one to step off sides, and he got the yellow card, a team yellow card. That I can see maybe looking at that a little bit better, because it was not just the one person, it was the whole team being was committing these infractions. But otherwise, I can't think of another penalty that I would be less than 10 minutes is necessary. Is there anything that comes to mind for you immediately that be like 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes?
Because I don't know. I've grown up with it being 10 minutes all the time, but I do maybe not the 5 and 2 and stuff, but the idea that if I get a penalty against me and I'm off the field, and then your team scores a try, well, you have gained that advantage for me being off. But it's almost like there's too many advantages there. Like if you, especially like a front row or like a hooker or someone who gets a yellow card, and then the team has to bring on another specialist player. Well, and then drop one like either a back row or a back. But you have gained more than once for that penalty.
Yeah.
In that situation, you gained having to sub another player off, me having to potentially bring on a player who's already tired if it's in that second half and they've already been trained, and then you score, and you're still only playing against 14 men. So like, how many gains are you going to make for one thing? And that thing could be a head injury. That thing could also just be too many offsides. So I think a sliding scale would be great.
I guess my only contention with that point is that we talked about this maybe last week, the week before that these are professionals and they know what they're doing. Yeah. So when they're actively choosing to do these things, to me, the 10 minutes seems like that. I don't know that it's fine, but yeah, I mean, the other one that's interesting to me too, because you kind of made me think about it now, was the whole trial run of the 20-minute red cards, and you could sub someone back on again. I don't personally watch a lot of Super Rugby, so I don't really know how it all went and tested out to be. But to me, that doesn't seem like a good idea.
No, I think if you do it, because I think up until maybe 2 or 3 years ago, red cards were so rare that if you did something that was either 2 yellows or you did something really bad that was worth a red card, that was it. You should be off for the game. But whereas now, like, I don't know if it was the last Six Nations or the one before, but like Ireland played Italy. Italy got someone injured in one of their front row got injured in the first 5 minutes. Yeah, someone got injured in the first couple of minutes. Then they got a yellow card, or they got a red card, the replacement front row, and then they had to sub another player off, and so they went down to 13 men for the rest of the game. And you're like, and I remember like Johnny Sexton and Peter Mahoney were like, you're ruining the game. Like this isn't rugby. Like, we don't want to play 13 men. Yeah. We want to play rugby.
Yeah.
Anyway, we talked about that for a big chunk of time. So, if you agree with us or disagree with us, put it in the comments. I did a podcasty thing. Also, I don't know, link in description, other things for that. What else we got to talk about today?
Well, I mean, moving forward, we have, kind of jumping back to the Castaways as a team, we now have 2 games left in the season. One is against the Detroit Tradesmen, who are now number 1 actually in our division, in our specific Midwest division. And then I believe D4 plays the Louisville D4 team. this weekend, which I'm excited, even though I can't. Well, I'll be there actually. What I'm saying is that a lot of unless they travel, I think it's a home game though.
Both home games this week.
Both home games, to say that's what I thought. One of my rugby friends from college now plays for Louisville, and he should be. I'm hoping he'll travel up so I can see him, which will be cool. And then so you have that, and then we play Michiana and Elkhart, Indiana, which is a 3 or 4 hour drive the weekend after, and that pretty much wraps our season up. I think at that point, for the D3 team, anyways. The D4 team, I'm not quite as sure because I haven't played any D4 minutes this season. Where they go from there. On top of that, Casters related as well, we do have a team store that is currently up on our Facebook page, which we'll link below as well. That way you guys can have access to it. Right now, I believe there's track pants, a track jacket, a hoodie, joggers, a bucket hat, and a training jersey from a brand called Webb Ellis. Not sure how we're connected to them, but it's the vendor we went through, and stuff looks really good. Looks to be good quality, so I'm excited to throw some money at that and get some jerseys and some merch and stuff like that. Any other?
Oh, I tell what we didn't do. We didn't just to annoy Ollie. We didn't talk about the fantasy Who02 because I think
That's true.
So Bert owed Ben, Eli owed Larry. Hang on.
The funny
Very
story
quickly.
about Bert, by the way, on last Thursday, he thought it was Ben P, not Ben W, who he owed the beer. He's like, well, if I get him a beer anyways, does it count? And I was like, no, you got to get this man the beer. So he's still in debt, I believe, until further notice. So I haven't been notified that Bert has paid his dues to Ben W with the free beer.
Okay, so round 3 points. Eli, you owe Charlie Day. Oh my God, Charlie absolutely destroyed it. Look at that.
Oh, Charlie Deeds.
Deeds.
Charlie Deeds.
Who's Charlie Day, the guy from Always Sunny?
I think so, yeah. I mean, they kind of look like something.
Sorry. Yeah, look, I didn't finish that badly this week, but Eli, 129 points, Eli. What did you do? Oh, we had 7 players who didn't play this week.
Sounds about right.
And then Charlie must have had Dupont 106 points. He had Thomas Ramos as his captain, so 192 points there.
Wild to me that Dupont got that many points and still had to it got sent off like that. But
Dupont, if you had Dupont as your captain or your as your you get triple points for your captain, he scored like 300 something points.
This kind of goes in with this game.
318 points.
But as it stands, my player of the tournament so far has been Bundiaki.
100%.
I think it's hard to debate that one, but so far he's just been the man of the tournament so far. Like, he's always in that pocket for Ringrose or for Sexton or for Gibson Park or whoever else to put him through a hole. And I mean, the hat trick helps things, but like even in the big game against South Africa, I mean, he was breaking through holes and stuff like that. So,
do you want to hear a trivia thing about Bundiaki? Tell me the job. He took a year out from rugby when he moved from when he was in. He used to play for Waikato Chiefs, and he took a year out when he was professional, and he got a job. Do you want that job? Have a guess at what you think.
Which country was the job? And was this in Ireland or was
no?
It
was in South Africa. It was before he moved to Ireland.
In South Africa.
I'm sorry, in New Zealand before he moved to Ireland.
I'm gonna go with a bricklayer.
No, he was a bank teller. Could you imagine walking into a bank and this?
The most Irish accent you've ever heard.
He doesn't have an Irish accent though.
I know.
Yeah, he's good. And then I don't remember who played for Samoa because his cousins play for Samoa.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big cool thing. But yeah, I'd love it if he had a Connacht accent. That'd be hilarious. You couldn't understand a word he was saying.
I don't know. I don't understand the Irish accents all the time. The Dublin one, when I hear the Leinster players talk, I can at least understand that. But some of the Northern Irish ones are a little bit.
Well, Northern Irish, my dad's from Northern Ireland. You got to talk through your nose, like it's all high pitched and yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. I'm gonna do an outro. Okay. You ready? Mm-hmm. Come out and play rugby with us, Rhodes Park. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 o'clock till 8 o'clock, and then Woodlands Tavern on Thursdays after training for a couple of beers. Woodlands Backyard on Saturdays after home games.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be there doing a bit of a boat race and having some beers. Beers are free, which is good, so just make sure you tip your bartender. And then last thing to say is just like, please give us a follow. We've got like 12 followers at this point, which is really fun. But like, give us a follow, give us a like. All the other Instagram stuff, click, share,
message us, give us ideas.
I don't know, there's the things, but yeah. And if there's anything you guys want to talk about or want us to talk less about, Anton Dupont,
the greatest one.
we will absolutely try and include it. Shout out to some people who've been supporting it. Paul, you're a legend. Brendan, you've been trying to get into this thing for a while.
Still have a few more guys that need to be featured on here before the season ends.
So we'll definitely try and get as many people involved as we can because it is fun.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a bit of a laugh. So thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.